From Anime3000.com, it's the Anime 3000 panel with Sean Russell. Each week we focus on a different topic pertaining to the wide world of anime and manga, and bring you a panel of diverse perspectives on that topic. And now, Sean Russell.
Season 2, Episode 3, Movie Directors in Anime Not Named Miyazaki. In this episode of the Anime 3000 panel, we're going to discuss several anime directors that have had a significant impact on the medium. These directors include Katsuhiro Otomo, Isao Takahata, Satoshi Kon, and Mamoru Oshii. Our panel includes Bradley Meek from themanime.org, Daryl Surat from Anime World Order, and Zach Bertschy from Anime News Network and the ANN cast. In addition to our panel discussion, we'll have a review of Sergeant Frog and some closing thoughts from yours truly. You're listening to the Anime 3000 panel. I'm your host and moderator, Sean Russell, and today we're going to discuss anime directors not named Miyazaki. Now, our first panelist prides himself as being a hipster, a gamer, otaku, and student. His work can be seen on the anime review site, themanime.org. We would like to welcome Bradley Meek to our program.
Hey there. Happy to be here.
Our second panelist is making his first appearance on our show. He can be heard as one of the hosts of the Anime News Network's first podcast, ANN Cast. He's currently executive editor of AnimeNewsNetwork.com and a proud addition to this week's panel. Zach Bertschy is on the show.
Hey, what up?
Making his second official appearance on our show is 1/3 of the trio that makes up Anime World Order. He is also a contributor to Otaku USA, which can be found where major magazines are sold. Daryl Surat is on our program.
Ba weep grana weep ninny bong. How's that? It's universal.
Daryl, you.
In this episode, we're going to discuss several directors without the last name Miyazaki, and this, of course, was prompted by the release of Ponyo in America, or North America, or the United States, rather. So today we're going to discuss Katsuhiro Otomo, Isao Takahata, Satoshi Kon, and Mamoru Oshii. So let's get started with Katsuhiro Otomo.
Katsuhiro Otomo is a famous director in a sense. Personally, I think his contributions are much, much wider in the field of manga. If you have to narrow his contributions to anime, you can pretty much sum it up in one film, in one word, Akira. Pretty famous seminal film from the 1980s, beautifully animated, one of the most technically proficient movies there is, very influential in getting a lot of anime fans in America interested in Japanese animation. One of the first things that came out where they didn't actually hide that it was anime. It was, this is Japanese animation. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was in every Blockbuster video. Tons of people saw it, got mainstream recognition. Other than that, Otomo's track record for anime is a little shoddy. I'm not going to whitewash that. I mean, I do like the projects that he's worked on. He's primarily worked on anthologies. One's released here under the name Neo Tokyo. It's Mani Mani Labyrinth Tales. And another is released just under the name Memories. And Otomo did segments for both of these, I believe. Order to Stop Construction and Cannon Fodder were the two. And really, though, Akira is like his main one. I mean, you think of that, and then you think how many years and years he spent after that trying to top himself. And what did he do? Steam Boy. Very beautiful movie, very expensive, not a good film.
And Rojinshi, don't forget that.
Rojin Z is a good movie. Well, it's more of an OAV feature-length kind of thing, but...
Well, it is a good movie, but he's something of a one-hit wonder in the sense that it was a really, really good one hit to have, very influential, but I don't think he can ever really, or at least so far, he hasn't really reached that height again. And it's kind of a high mark to reach, not only because it's a really good film, but it also
When you
seemed
say
to
it, you're
have,
talking about Akira.
I'm talking about Akira, yes.
Okay.
Kind of a high watermark that he probably can't hit again, not only because it was a really, really good movie with really high production value that we're probably not going to see again because it was made at the height of Japan's bubble economy, but also because it seemed to have come like at exactly the right moment for American fandom, in the sense that I think that at the time, people kind of heard about this anime, but once Akira hit, it kind of gave it that legitimacy, at least for a while, that anime fans had been looking for and craving. How do I feel about the film? I think it's really good. Really, the ending kind of tripped me up, and I also think that he tried to compress a little too much of the manga into a single movie. Maybe if he had taken something of a very different path from the manga, and keep in mind I've only read like a couple chapters. But
Okay, well that's probably why I was gonna say actually that's precisely what he did do. At the time, the manga was unfinished. It's very, very long, 6 volumes, Dark Horse, and really, since he's the author of the manga and also the writer and director of the film, you probably couldn't have asked for anyone to try and compress down the thematic core of that. But I think my opinion of the film is much like Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind. It's a difficult movie to go back and watch. Not once you go and you read that manga and you see how much further it goes compared to the original source movie. When you go and you look at the movie and you say, oh, this character kind of got shafted compared to, how important they were in the comics, kind of dulls your perception of it. But it's still a gorgeous looking film, great music, great action scenes and that sort of thing. But I think it has a reputation as being a nonsensical movie, which I think is partially unjustified because I think a lot of it is just the result of that original Streamline Pictures dub, which is kind of the default way a lot of people first saw Akira, or Akira, as they pronounced it there. I won't fault anyone for pronouncing it the other way, because Streamline Pictures, for those of you who don't know, took some liberties with their scripts, and the end result was maybe the plot didn't quite make as much sense as it could have, given what could have been. But at the same time, it is a whole lot of material to condense down into a feature-length movie, and so it's kind of a tough deal. I think really Otomo's contribution to the anime field overall is best seen in his understudies, the people who he sort of trained up. We'll be talking about Satoshi Kon momentarily. There's another guy called Koji Morimoto, who I think is fantastic. He founded a studio that's called Studio 4C. They kind of do the really groundbreaking experimental stuff in addition to the safe bet music videos that keep them afloat.
Yeah,
I think that's really...
Genius Party represent.
I like Genius. Did you see Genius Party Beyond?
I did. It's freaking awesome.
I liked it too.
Is the only way to get that the DVDs from Japan? Because I don't think there's any of them here.
4C stuff doesn't get released in America by and large.
Sad. They need to release at least Detroit Metal City here in the U.S. At least that.
It's one of those things where I always wonder, because Mind Game, which I highly recommend, we're getting off topic from the task here, but that's a 4C movie. The Region 2 DVD, perfectly legible English subtitles, but it's just too weird a movie, I guess. And 4C's output, by and large, is kind of too weird. Back to Otomo, though. I don't want to derail this a little too much. I think manga is really where people are going to remember Katsuhiro Otomo as sort of changing the dynamic of things, because at the time they had the demographics marked down for like, okay, this is shonen, and shonen is for 13-year-olds. Then they got seinen, and these are for grown men. Otomo's stuff like Akira, Domu, A Child's Dream, and so on and so forth, that's kind of this middle ground for like guys who are like 16 to mid-teens. Right nowadays, they'd call that sort of the ultra jump variety of demographic, like who that anthology is targeted to. He kind of opened that up and said, hey, this is feasible. And that's kind of why people are going to remember him. I think the reason that it's so well remembered, that people like Akira, people like Otomo's comics, is because his manga owes more to Western comic books than it does to traditional manga, as far as paneling, as far as design work, and so on. What do you guys think?
I'm sorry, repeat the...
That's cool.
The question again.
I was blabbing on and going off into space, and everyone zones out. It's cool. No, I was saying Otomo's contribution to manga, the reason Akira is so accessible is because a lot of it is influenced by either Western comics, and by Western I mean like European, American stuff like Mabius and the like. Yeah, rather than like the oh, this is too Japanese and stuff. His character designs don't really look like, you know, most other anime things because he got that bubblehead thing going on.
Yeah, I could jive with that. I mean, that movie, I think, was like Bradley was saying, right place, right time. I mean, it's super edgy, super violent, looked like anime, but not too anime. Like, definitely has its own style. And like 1988, that came out in 88 in the States, right? Pretty sure it was 88. Because Neo Tokyo's primed to explode, or whatever the poster said.
Yep, EXPLODE. with little dots in between.
An acronym for nothing.
It was originally released in Japan in 88 and released in America in 89.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and don't forget the Epic Comics comic release put out by Marvel. The really nice colorized editions that I got right here. Really wish they'd reprint those. That's kind of what hyped up that release of that movie, so people knew that it was happening. But yeah, I mean, that's Akira. More people need to see it. I go to conventions and I say, who has not seen this movie when I show clips of it during my panels? And a surprising amount of people raise their hands. But then it's not that surprising considering one came out a while ago and the last DVD release of it was sometime back. It did just get a Blu-ray release, though. And that's really the way you got to see that movie.
That's how I saw it a couple of months ago. It just reminded me how much I dug that movie. I like the new dub, too. The new dub's pretty good.
I actually like the old dub actors, but I prefer the new dub script.
Yep. Yeah, totally. I'm with you on that. Yeah, I'm down.
I'm kind of surprised it came out so quickly in the United States. Does anybody know why? I would have thought it would have been like 3 years later. Oh, this was good. Let's release this here.
Well, it's just anime situation as far as bringing stuff out and licensing it for at least in the U.S. didn't really happen on that regular basis. I mean, Carl Macek, had a few titles under his belt at that point, but it wasn't nearly as complicated as it is now. It's conceivable that they had it all set up and ready to go, ahead of time. But who knows? That's a question for Uncle Carl.
Our next director is Isao Takahata.
He's
Miyazaki's partner in crime.
Kind of the unsung hero of Studio Ghibli. I mean, when people think Studio Ghibli, they think Hayao Miyazaki and nothing else, but it's really two guys because Takahata came first and sort of is Miyazaki's quote-unquote senior/contemporary, as it were. He really started like in the 60s working under Toei, stuff like that. And I think his directorial debut as far as feature films is this movie called Horus, Prince of the Sun, which was released in the UK under the name Little Norse Prince. This is it's a pretty cool movie. I mean, when I first started my podcast, I think that was the very first thing I decided to review to show everyone how serious I was. But
it was Animal Treasure Island.
Animal Treasure Island is a Miyazaki movie.
Really?
And when I say Miyazaki movie, I mean he worked on it. I don't mean he directed it. But yeah, that's also from that Toei era, as far as when Toei was trying to be the Japanese version of Walt Disney, which is kind of the reputation that Studio Ghibli has in America now. Oh, they're the Japanese Disney or the Japanese Pixar. That's kind of what Toei was going for when they were doing things like Taro the Dragon Boy and Alakazam the Great and all that stuff. And I think that was Toei, yeah. But yeah, Takahata, his stuff does come out in America. I think the most well-known and prestigious thing of his library to be released in the United States is Grave of the Fireflies.
Definitely.
Who has seen that?
Definitely.
Everybody's seen that, right?
Everyone should have seen it.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where like Roger Ebert will play it up and say, "Oh wow, Grave of the Fireflies, great movie. Go see it." For those of you who don't know what it is, it's a pretty serious story about World War II and these two children who find themselves experiencing nothing but bad things over and over, which means that it's Justin Sudeikis approved, child suffering.
But while I was so rudely interrupting Daryl, I was also trying to say that Not only is Isao Takahata kind of Miyazaki's senpai, or the guy that Miyazaki looked up to, he is also kind of almost joined at the hip at Miyazaki. It seems like Miyazaki just makes a better movie whenever Takahata gives him a hand. I think Oshii.
Are you
We get
saying
to this,
the fact that he didn't give him a hand for Ponyo showed?
Well, I'm here.
Well-
like I was just about to say something about this. Takahata is the reason Miyazaki's movies used to make sense and have good scripts.
yeah, because he's the one who'd say, "Hey,
Yeah.
you got to have something
But-
follow from here,
Yep.
point A to point B, man."
And then when Miyazaki won that Oscar, that all went out the window.
Yeah, it's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't hear you from this golden statuette that I was too busy admiring." "Oh, you don't have a golden statuette? Sit down."
Please tell me more what you think about my script. And he slowly lifts the Oscar up.
Yeah, Takahata is very much more of the middle-aged, like Japanese adult. That's like his target demographic for his cartoon movies, which is virtually unheard of in America. You know, you don't really release an animated movie that's just for middle-aged people. But Omaide Poro Poro, or Only Yesterday, this is a movie that really is not a kid's movie because they'd be bored out of their skull by it. And yet it's one of my favorite Studio Ghibli films because I'm at that age now where I can sort of look back and say, "Oh, wow, my childhood. What happened?"
I first saw that whenever I was a freshman in college, and I didn't get it then.
Yep.
It's probably time for me to go back and watch it again. But yeah, it's one of those cartoons where you have to be mature and you have to have had some life experience under your belt to fully appreciate what it is.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch that when I'm on my 40th birthday. Like
You want to know something depressing, Zach?
And you have your
That
bottles
movie-
of gin around you, and you're
Oh, he's got the bottles of gin around him now. But
Yeah.
the depressing thing is that the main character in that movie is looking back on her life and everything that's passed by. She's 25.
Oh man. Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh shit.
That's old lady age in Japan.
Well, she's 25, but I didn't think she really acted like she was 25. She acted probably a little more. You know what? And this is just going off of my memory, but maybe this was slightly biographical for Takahata.
Oh, I'm
because
sure.
she's a lot older than her age.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
that possibility. I mean, the thing about Takahata, I mean, that's the only Ghibli movie that's not gotten a U.S. release because all the other ones, even Pompoko, which I think gets a little bad of a rap, even though it's, you know,
I'd
it is
agree.
what it is. It's allegorical, like kind of beats you over the head with it as far as, you know, environment good, people
Inflatable
industrializing
testicles.
things not so good. I don't think it's that bad of a movie, to be honest. I think it's pretty clever for what it is, but as far as comparing it in the grander scheme of other Ghibli movies, maybe not so much. I think Takahata is really, if you want to go and see like the essential ones, I would say Only Yesterday. You can get it. Maybe not on DVD in America, but you can get it. Horse Prince of the Sun, same deal. Grave of the Fireflies, which you should still be able to get because ADV is just re-released it.
Who did Yamada's? My Neighbor's Yamada's.
That was a Takahata.
That was
yeah.
Takahata, and that was like a really, really expensive flop because he spent a whole lot of money to make everything look like Peanuts. As when I say Peanuts, I mean like the cartoon strip Peanuts, like this very child's drawing sort of thing. There's very little story or plot. It almost seems like, you know, Miyazaki did the plotting of it with how free form it all is, and yeah.
I
well,
liked
it
that
feels
movie. I
like-
thought it was cool.
It's got its moments. I mean, I watched it and it's like, that's a nice movie, but it's not like, you know, really, really great, awesome stuff as far as Mononoke Hime or Nausicaa are.
It's certainly not essential. It's definitely a minor work.
Well, I think it's a great movie, and about the
Certainly
pacing,
none of their
it
movies
feels-
are bad.
Yeah.
Nah, I hate
Pacing,
Pompoko. Like I hate that movie. So, but I wouldn't say it. But I would admit that it's not a bad movie. I just fucking hate it.
Yeah, it's just like, it doesn't really do it for you. Understandable.
Boring.
Oh
as
my
fuck.
God! I will go out on a limb here and say I liked Pompoko. Pompoko was really good.
You'll go out on a stretched scrotum.
A stretch, yes. I have a daring opinion here. I'm right on the edge. But I liked Pompoko. It's actually I haven't seen Grave of the Fireflies yet.
Wow, you got to
And-
do that.
I have to do
crap.
that. I actually have it on my shelf. I just haven't seen it yet, like a whole lot of other things on my shelf. But Pompoko is actually my favorite so far because it's kind of an epic movie. And I like epic. And I was kind of prepared for it, admittedly, going in, not only because I heard the review on AWO, but someone told me, be prepared because this movie is not only long, it also covers a lot of ground.
I'm not
And I
actually
think
sure that we ever actually reviewed that movie. Maybe you imagined it.
I think you did. Or maybe I dreamed.
imagined it. It could have been a fever dream for you, as might be necessary to watch that movie.
Oh, man.
It's all right. Just for the record, for clarification, when we say epic, we actually mean the real definition of it, as opposed to this internet crap that has rendered the word meaningless.
Right. I mean, having a very large scope, taking place over a very large period of time. Yeah, I like it. And inflatable balls, I mean, it's hilarious, and it feels really weird the first time you watch it. But I was also prepared for that, too. Somebody told me, well, they're not really raccoons. They're actually...
Tanuki, as
They're
everyone
also-
learned from Super Mario Brothers 3, there was Tanuki Suit Mario. And that was everyone's introduction to what the heck is a Tanuki. But yeah, I mean, Isao Takahata, you really, if you're into Studio Ghibli and you don't really know about this guy, you gotta get into that because he doesn't get the credit he deserves, and he's really an unsung hero of anime around here, and he shouldn't be.
And he's making a new movie, so
Yeah, he's making a new movie.
Yeah, what's the progress on that?
Yeah, any
Anybody know?
details about that movie?
You mean what is the movie?
Yeah, if
What-
any
what's going
details.
to be?
Yeah.
He's going to be making a new updated version of the Takitoro Monogatari, which is the tale of the bamboo cutter. This is one of the oldest Japanese novels to exist. It got remade and turned into a science fiction adaptation and called Queen Millennia a couple decades ago by a guy named Leiji Matsumoto and company. But yeah, I mean, if you want to know about what this thing's about, it's basically they find a girl from the moon inside a bamboo, and it's very whimsical and stuff like that. Some people say Sailor Moon was partially inspired by it. Makes sense because again, princess from the Moon Kingdom, and then the people from the moon come back, and that sort of thing.
it was heavily referenced in Yamada's actually.
Yeah.
Connections.
Can I fish for opinions here real quick? I see that he also did a movie called Gauche the Cellist.
Oh yeah.
Which
yeah.
that I haven't heard about before. I'm just browsing Zach's
I
site.
always associate that with Gisaburo Sugi for some reason, but I guess you're right. It probably was Takahata.
It was, and it wasn't released here in the U.S. Interesting, even though it seems to be a Ghibli movie.
Well, no. Studio Ghibli didn't exist at the time that Ghost the Shellist was made. That was I think it might even predate Nausicaa. It was 1982. Recall that
you're
Nausicaa
right,
is
yeah.
Studio Topcraft, not Studio Ghibli proper. But yeah, Ghost of Shellist is actually an adaptation of a novel by Kenji Miyazawa, a guy who wrote Night in the Milky Way Railroad, and very lyrical poet sort of person. He's kind of like Japan's Shakespeare, if that makes sense. He's a pretty weird sort of guy. I mean, some people say that even Pompoko is sort of an adaptation of a Miyazawa story. I don't know the full details of that because a lot of his stuff doesn't get released in English, so you can't really read it.
Right.
But yeah, Ghost of Shellist, it's cool stuff. It's never been released in America, obviously, but it has been fan subtitled. You can get it.
So do you guys have any closing comments on Takahata before we move on to our next director?
Underrated guy, needs some more recognition, and he's also a hilariously old man. He's going to die, and once that happens, Studio Ghibli is just going to be sunk because they got no one waiting in the wings.
I don't think he gets enough credit for helping Miyazaki's movies be his good movies be what they are. Like Mononoke would not be what it is without him. Spirited Away would not be what it is without him. The guy deserves a lot more credit because now we've seen what Miyazaki does when he's not being controlled. And so he kind of kept him in a teapot there, and now he's kind of out of that. And yeah, so I think the dude deserves some serious ups, serious cred.
Ditto.
All right. And with that, we are going to go to a quick break. But when we come back, we'll be discussing Satoshi Kon and Mamoru Oshii. So we'll be right back.
Oh, hey, Hutch! What's up, Hutch, man? How you been, player?
Oh, okay, since I got on these new meds.
New meds, that's awesome, man. Man, I haven't seen you since the Parsecs last year, when you totally lost it and went on that profanity-laced verbal vomit rant. Man, that was hysterical.
I had to go see a therapist for it. She said I have deep emotional scars, dude.
You do?
Yep.
You're serious?
Yeah, man, it's a serious condition. And I have to be careful of the word parsecs. It can really set me off.
Uh-huh.
That's what the meds are for. Ever since last year's parsecs, I keep swearing uncontrollably.
Ah. Wow. Well then, is it bad for me to say that the 4th annual Parsec Awards will be held at Dragon Con 2009 in Atlanta, September 4th through the 7th?
No, it's okay. I can handle the parsecs.
Yeah, clearly.
Those judges give every award to Matt Wallace, the giant-sized bastard. I mean, you and I have been in this game for longer than anyone, and we can't keep getting shut out. I mean...
Hutch!
What?
I won one last year.
Won a what?
A Parsec.
You won a parsec?
Yeah, afraid so.
Well, motherfucking shit-eating son of a...
Uh-oh.
Suckers, they should just take that parsec and stick it right into their hole. I mean, fucking in and out, like a little dipstick.
Dude,
Whoa. These guys, every single time, I'm the only one left who hasn't won a fucking parsec.
Take a
I tell
pill.
you what I'm going to do,
Actually,
Scott.
well, you
I'm going
have
to
been
go to
taking a
Dragon
pill,
Con, I'm going
haven't
to
you?
put my foot so
What
far
about
up
the
their fucking asses,
new
they're going to be
meds?
flossing with
New
my
meds.
fucking shoestrings.
Dude, there's a vein
Sons
pulsing
of
in your
bitches,
neck, in your
sucking
head.
Llama fuckers.
Whoa,
Yes, they
llamas.
are llama fuckers, and they are sucking eating burgers.
Man, this is awesome. Jesus.
Yeah, we're back from the break, and right now we're going to discuss Satoshi Kon.
Yeah, I'm gonna take this from Daryl.
No, you don't take it from me. I mean, I only go if no one else wants to go first.
Yeah, no, I'll take Colin. He's my favorite anime director, as he is for. I think a lot of people have been into anime for a while, because while it's easy to sort of fall on the Miyazaki stuff as it's a masterpiece, Kon has serious edge, and he makes films for adults, and they're masterpieces. I mean, I love all of his films, and when he puts out a new one, it's Christmas for me. And for a lot of fans, I'm sure some of you guys feel the same way. But like, I almost like found myself tearing up at the beginning of in the credit sequence for.
I love the opening credits. Though.
I was almost in tears because I was like, "This is so good! This is so good!" And all of his movies are like that for me. I remember seeing Perfect Blue back when it came out. I think we had.
And that put you in tears?
No, that was holy shit. That was totally holy shit. But that's such a great thriller, and it's so well executed, and it's so creepy and unsettling and screwed up, and it's just great. And of course, the great Millennium Actress.
That one's my favorite, I would say.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not a popular choice for people to say, what's your favorite Satoshi Kon movie, Millennium Actress, but that one is mine.
You know what? I don't think you're right on that. Everybody I know, every super fan that I know that's really into Satoshi Kon, that's their favorite, except for me. My favorite's Paprika. But Millennium Actress is I mean, and everyone kind of overlooks Tokyo Godfathers, and I wouldn't say rightfully so. I would say it's his Yamada's.
I would say it's the most accessible. I would say if you're totally new to it and you say, okay, I don't know who this guy is, Tokyo Godfathers is the good place to start because it's the most linear, it's the most accessible of his movies, and it's the least lyrical and surreal. I think the real issue with Satoshi Kon, why so many people get excited over what he's doing, is he's relatively young for a high-profile anime director. He's only in his late 40s, as opposed to all these old men such as Miyazaki, Takahata, and so on and so forth. And some people say he's sort of, almost a Christopher Guest of anime as far as the things that he makes are very similar to one another. I think other people might be the Christopher Guest of anime, but that's a subject for another time. I mentioned him offhand when we were talking about Otomo. Satoshi Kon sort of got his start working on things that Katsuhiro Otomo was producing or spearheading and the like. Rojin Z, which we mentioned, Satoshi Kon worked on that. Of course, I first heard of the guy's name In Memories, the anthology piece, he did the first segment.
Rose.
That's right, Magnetic Rose, by far and away the best of the three, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so from there, obviously, it was just, full steam ahead. Perfect Blue, Millennium Actress, Tokyo Godfathers, Paprika. Everything this guy does is great. I'm really mad that I didn't get to see him when he was here in America. But unfortunately, I live in the wrong state.
Yeah, I agree with everything that y'all have said so far. And by the way, my favorite is Paranoia Agent, if only because I prefer anime in series. Movies are just too short for me. I can't get as involved in the characters. But if I did have one criticism for Satoshi Kon, it is that he kind of dips into the same well over and over again. And it does get a little old to have another movie about dreams and reality.
And the nature of reality and so on and so forth.
Exactly, yeah. I think that's the reason that Paprika just didn't really click with me. And I also think that's kind of the reason why Satoshi Kon fans don't warm up to Tokyo Godfathers, because that's not really a theme there. I like Tokyo Godfathers quite a bit. It might be my second favorite, but that's kind of a tough pick between really, really good movies there.
I think the other thing to note about Tokyo Godfathers that makes it a little different is a lot of his movies, he likes to work with Suzumu Hirasawa for the music. This guy makes unmistakable stuff, works very electronica, very choral soundtracks. If you've seen Berserk and you know that song from Berserk, Forces, you know what this guy's music sounds like. Yeah. And so you see this stuff in Millennium Actress, see it in Paprika, it's unmistakable. And the fact that Tokyo Godfathers doesn't have that sort of clues people, and it's like, hey, something's a little off with this one. But Paranoia Agent, I'm glad you brought that one up, because one thing that impresses me about Paranoia Agent is that each episode is almost completely different as far as directorial stylization. There's one episode that's very similar to Perfect Blue as far as the multiple split personalities and such. And there's one episode very much akin to Millennium Actress, in which someone's telling the story and everyone's sort of being involved in that story. And then one episode is very much like Tokyo Godfathers, in which there's the three, sort of bumbling kind of folks. And it's also a really good one. But I mean, maybe as far as your first entry into the world of Satoshi Kon, I don't know if it works out that well. I mean, a lot of people saw it when it was on Adult Swim. And that's probably how people know about that show existing. But yeah, I like that show a lot. It was really well put together.
I want to pull back just a minute to your comment about him being, because some calling him the Christopher Guest of anime. Having just seen Inglourious Bastards, I got to say, I would compare him closer to Tarantino in that his films are very similar. They have a similar thumbprint, but you're not seeing the same thing every time, whereas Christopher Guest, it's closer to seeing the same thing. The structure is exactly the same. But I would say he's closer to Tarantino in that there's a thumbprint there, but it is different every time.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, Zach, your main passion is film. I'll take your word on that because I don't really know too much about what I would consider the signature, ticks of Quentin Tarantino, other than he likes feet and he likes weird, obscure 70s cereal brands and so on and so forth. But, I mean, yeah, I can see that. I think one thing that does permeate through Satoshi Kon's movies is he always has to acknowledge that there's that otaku demographic that's there, and he doesn't like that it exists, but at the same time he knows which side his bread is buttered on, and so there's got to be some sort of glimmer of hope there for, his message is always, hey, you can't delude yourself in this fantasy existence, you got to live in the real world. That's pretty much the message of Paranoia Agent and Paprika and things like that in a nutshell, and yet they're always there.
I mean, I just wanted to mention I had the opportunity to see Paprika with a group of psychology students, and they spent the entire movie kind of laughing and occasionally rolling their eyes, because according to them, and I'm total layman when it comes to this kind of thing, the movie is basically a Psych 101 class in a movie. There are so many call-outs to Carl Jung and all these great thinkers. It's totally almost a play-by-play of a psych course. And I didn't notice that at all. I was just taken with the visuals and the story and everything like that. But
yeah, it wasn't like beat you over the head like this is introductory college work like Waking Life or something like that, where they just sort of sit there and read from a freaking book and think they're so goddamn clever. No, Satoshi Kon isn't quite like that. And I think he's going to – I hope he sticks around anime for years to come, because he's kind of like one of the new guard as far as I'm concerned.
Well, he
Him,
seems to be very passionate about what he does. I understand that he more or less does his storyboards by himself,
Oh, yeah.
by hand, from beginning to end. And
You watch the supplemental features on Paprika, and you will hate that man for being able to just draw that well. He just draws in pen. He doesn't even do pencils first and then draw it over to make sure he got it right. No. He just straight up, okay, this is it. And then he does it. And I'm like, damn you, Satoshi Kon. You and your talent.
And I think winding down with Satoshi Kon, do you have any closing comments on him for anyone on the panel?
He's his own evil twin. He's got a hilarious band up.
Cough, tumbleweeds. What do you mean by that?
I just made a night court joke on the latest podcast. I'm not concerned about timeliness and relevance.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to explain that. We'll just puzzle over that like a paprika.
Well, up next, we're going to discuss Mamoru Oshii.
Oshii, can I take this one? Please,
Yeah.
please, please.
Go ahead.
Yes, Oshii, he is another director that's very well known here in the United States. Like Akira, when Ghost in the Shell came out in the United States and I believe was released theatrically, that got a lot of recognition. I think it was very popular. Especially in the 90s anime fandom. And I think it's still kind of considered a canon, something that you absolutely have to watch if you want to consider yourself an anime fan. Of course, he's been doing anime for a long time. His first anime, I believe, was Urusei Yatsura, was where he got his start in the TV series.
The TV series for that, really good stuff. I mean, I always deride Rumiko Takahashi, creator of Ranma, Inuyasha, and that sort of thing, because really what made her famous was this Urusei Yatsura TV show, which drastically differs from her own source material to the extent that she had a big falling out with Oshii as far
over Beautiful
as
Dreamer, yeah.
Well, Beautiful Dreamer especially, but I mean, even the TV series, Oshii's big position was that he didn't want Lum to be such a bitch. And Rumiko Takahashi was like, inconceivable. She has to be that. And Oshii won out, and the show became a huge mega hit, and Takahashi is now swimming in her Scrooge McDuck vault. And that's really where Oshii and a lot of the people who would make Pat Labor one of the other great Mamoru Oshii titles kind of cut their teeth. I think the thing about Oshii is he's one of those guys who doesn't really like anime. I think he sort of resents that he has to work in it because he's sort of this multi-medium sort of guy. He makes live-action films of questionable quality, and he also does manga and that sort of thing as well.
His first passion is puppetry.
His first passion is Basset Hound. As a matter.
Well, yeah.
But I mean, if anyone really wants to get serious into Mamoru Oshii, there's a great book that you can buy for pretty cheap now. It's called Stray Dog of Anime: The Films of Mamoru Oshii by Brian Ra, and it's more or less his college thesis put into a book format. But as far as other things to watch, who here has seen Angel's Egg?
I have.
So what's it all mean, man?
Dude. Oh, I really wish I was stoned whenever I watched that. Then I might have been able to figure it out.
I actually was baked out of my mind when I saw Angel's Egg, and I remember it being pretty rad. I couldn't tell you what it meant, of course, because I was stoned as hell, but that movie is greatly... I mean, you really get a lot out of it when you're really, really high.
I couldn't tell you what it means, but I could tell you that it was just like floating in water. Very, very strange, surreal water while tripping on acid. You actually gave a really good analysis of it on your podcast, which
As
I keep
I always
referencing.
do, thanks.
Yeah, which I keep referencing and plugging for you. You're welcome. Where you said that he had just come out of, he had just left seminary without graduating, and and this seems to be him grappling with religion. And I could see, since I came from a very religious family and a very religious background where I nearly went to seminary myself, I could see a lot of parallels between the loss of faith and Angel's Egg in that movie. It's also very good just in mood alone, even if you don't feel like recognizing it. If you like movies that are very moody, watch Angel's Egg, which is pretty easy still to find fan subbed, even though it barely needs to be subtitled. It's very
little dialogue in the film.
Yeah. Other Mamoru Oshii, something else that you need to know is that he did Dallos, which I haven't seen yet, but is apparently the first OVA
It's either the first or one of the first, and the second one was Ponyo.
I thought the second one was Project Akon.
Project Aiko? No, that was a movie, if I'm not mistaken. Or, I could be completely wrong. But no, Project Aiko certainly wasn't one of the first OAVs ever made. Dallos definitely holds that distinction. It's not that good. I mean, it's got some issues with it. You mentioned floating on water. That reminds me of something that we should mention about Mamoru Oshii. He's got a whole lot of directorial tics, as it were. He likes to throw in a lot of the same stuff into pretty much everything that he does. Just floating in water is one thing. He's a fan of birds. He's a fan of the basset hound being there. He's a fan of people eating while talking to each other. He's a fan of the fisheye lens. Very sort of I don't know the term to describe.
Motifs is what he uses. He also throws in a lot of biblical quotes, and he's known for one thing in particular, and that's characters who are very, very philosophical. That's where he can get pretty divisive, or at least in Ghost in the Shell, because I'll be honest, I don't really care for the Ghost in the Shell movies. And I'm
not a huge fan of Innocence. I like the first movie, though.
Really?
Hang on. I gotta add this. There is one thing that you guys forgot that Mamoru Oshii is really, really into, and you will find in all of his films.
Dolls?
Giant buckets of ridiculous pretension.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So if you were to say that Oshii was a signature director because of all those motifs, I would say the pretension might be one of them. I mean, I do like Skycrawlers, don't get me wrong. It's a fantastic looking movie as far as plane combat and stuff goes. But also, it's punctuated by a whole lot of people being bored. I understand that's the point, but a lot of people may not.
Well, there's a way to do pretension correctly, or at least there's a way to be very philosophical and to not be boring. And I don't think that he did that in Ghost in the Shell or Innocence. It seemed very self-indulgent, especially in the very, very long bits of dialogue where people would talk while loading their guns and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk.
Well, in Innocence, they just talked without loading their guns.
I gotta say, Innocence I saw with my buddy Rob Bricken back when I worked at Anime Insider. We saw it at a private screening, I think it was Sony. Sony released? Yeah, it was Sony. They had a little press screening. We were the only ones there. And we hadn't seen this movie, and we were literally laughing out loud at how utterly ridiculously pretentious this movie was. Like, they're standing in an elevator, and they're
quoting Descartes.
Yeah, they're grimly quoting Bible quotes to each other, and by the 45-minute mark, we're just laughing our asses off because we cannot believe how totally self-indulgent this thing is. I mean, gorgeous movie, but holy shit! No one said, "Hey, this is supposed to be an action movie." Dude.
Oshii fascinates me because he's so good at the action scenes, and he's very good at comedy when he wants to be, but he's just not interested in doing action, and he's not interested in doing comedy. And it's one of those things, you go and you watch the Patlabor movies or any of those stuff, great movies, start to finish. I really like Patlabor 2 especially, but any of them are worth tracking down. They may be a little hard to find at this point in the game, but you'll notice that those don't really have a whole lot of action in them, but when they do, it's really, really good. And that's true for Ghost in the Shell. That's true for even Innocence when it has that hilarious mech battle. Skycrawler, same deal. He didn't direct Jinro, but he did do the screenplay of it. That's another good example of a great action scene, but it's not really an action movie. And that's kind of the thing with Oshii. Just to go all the way back, I mean, you mentioned Rob Bricken. He's a big Urusei Yatsura fan. We touched upon Beautiful Dreamer, but we didn't really talk about it. Who here seen it?
I've seen
it.
Okay, good. What do you guys think?
It's definitely high on my list of favorite movies, especially when it comes to mood and visuals.
Zach
It's
didn't
kind
seem
of
so high on it. He was making that kind of zombie sound.
Well, like, okay, I got my first exposure to anything, to Japanese comics and cartoons, was someone handed me a ratty old Volume 1, the big phone book sized Lum comics that Viz put out. That was my very first exposure to any of this stuff, and it was in like 7th grade, maybe 8th grade. And I liked the comedy, and I liked the sitcominess of it. I mean, at the time, I was just entertained, and there were boobs in it from time to time, and so I was okay with that. And when I finally saw Beautiful Dreamer, I had seen a lot of the show, like fan subbed, and I'd seen some of the other movies. And then I got to that, and I was like, "What is this shit?" Because I didn't understand it. Like, I didn't get why it was what it was. I'm like, "This is completely." I don't know. For me, it was like somebody decided to make a Brady Bunch movie where it's all ennui and it's shot in black and white, and for some reason Alice is dead. I mean, that's what it was like for me at the time. I've seen it since then, and I can appreciate it for what it is. But for me, it's this really pretentious guy coming in and making a movie based on a sitcom that just doesn't fit. I totally appreciate it for what it is. I'm not shitting on Beautiful Dreamer. But yeah, I have complicated feelings about that movie.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was going to say earlier that it's my favorite when it comes to mood and visuals, but in the script, I'm not so hot on that. Again, I'm kind of a guy where if you can't get the story right, I'm probably not going to get in to the movie, or I'm not going to like it a whole lot. And I thought that the script in Beautiful Dreamers was kind of shaky, especially since nobody warned me that Beautiful Dreamers was going to be so different from Urusei Yatsura, the TV series, which I watched beforehand.
Now, I actually respect the fact that it is thematically different, just because I think it's sort of testament to the characters that they can pull it off. Granted, the Urusei Yatsura cast is very much a large series of mostly one-note joke sort of characters, such that you introduce them, here's their shtick, and now drop them into a situation, episode writes itself.
Oh, that's Takahashi's characters to a T.
I was about to say, what, in a Takahashi comic? No.
Yeah. And so the fact that Oshii, like, for me, my favorite characters in Urusei Yatsura are the ones that Oshii sort of made his own. Megane wasn't really a character at all in the manga. He was just sort of amalgamation of the various students, and Oshii kind of took that and made him this sort of otaku lightning rod, as it were, as far as being like incredibly irrationally exuberant, sort of built Shigeru Chiba's career as far as being crazy screaming guys, such that when Patlabor came out, you go from Megane to Shige, and it's the same voice actor, almost the same character design, very crazy, screaming sort of guy. And I do think that without Beautiful Dreamer and even the rest of Urusei Yatsura as a whole, he couldn't have made Patlabor, which probably is like my favorite Oshii thing, which is kind of sad because no one really watches or likes Patlabor other than myself and like the 3 people who remember Central Park Media stuff.
Old schoolers love Patlabor. I mean, I enjoyed the films for what they were. They were a little bit before my time, and but Patlabor 2 was fantastic. I mean, it's a really good movie. But I'm old school, so
yeah. The great thing about Patlabor, if you're listening to this and you're not familiar with it, its real strength is its versatility, its ability to more or less change genre entirely from episode to episode and pull it off because the characters are constant, such that Patlabor, the first movie, is a mystery. Patlabor, the second movie, is this political Tom Clancy drama, very akin to, I think, the Siege of this American movie that came out several years ago. People often compare that to Patlabor 2. Other the OAVs, they've got like, crazy parodies of Ultraman or, a Monster Attacks, or there's some sort of like Yakuza tale. And these are why I think Oshii is a cool director who, when he's not so, amped up on, whoa, dude, what's going on with robots? Some people, don't really respect that whole deal with him, because I think he really is a guy who just wants to, maybe have his doll girlfriend and his basset hound. And once his basset hound dies, it's going to be worse than when his wife dies because he's married.
One thing that we haven't touched on that I think we really need to is that this guy gives an awesome interview. Oshii is very opinionated, isn't ashamed of giving his opinions, and if you pretty much anything where he opens his mouth, it's always very interesting to hear what he has to say. I've got right in front of me here a interview with the AV Club that Tasha Robinson did with him, and he's so quotable. Mind if I share a bit of it here? Or
Yeah, sure. He's got some great commentary tracks too. Go ahead.
Tasha Robinson asks, "You've been credited as a major influence on contemporary animators. Is there anything in particular you'd like them to learn from you?" Oshii's response, "I would recommend they not go into animation. It won't do them any good." "Well, why is that? You won't make any money, it's hard, and you'll lose all your friends. And yet you're still an animator." "Well, I don't care whether I have any friends." Which is kind of that seems to be him in a nutshell. He can be very perceptive and also very funny and self-depreciating.
Yeah, I mean, well, we mentioned an interview on the brand new ANN cast, which some of you may have heard of. We talked about this the other day, where he did an interview with Takahata, and he was just ripping on Ponyo.
Oh, yeah, saying like, what the heck is that? There was no story.
yeah, which I thought was hilarious.
It's a terrific interview, yeah.
The thing you gotta understand about Oshii is that he's as ridiculous as stuff he is. He's really big on no wasted motion. Every shot has to have meaning. Everything has to have a purpose for being there. Whether or not we, the viewer, can decipher what that purpose is not always certain. But rest assured, unless it's Angel's Egg, he knows what's going on in his movies down to the T. Like, why is that shot there, and so on and so forth.
Now, is he the kind of director who will explain later on, this is why I did this, this, and this? Or does he say, up to you?
Well, he's not quite full on Kunihiko Ikuhara, the director of Revolutionary Girl Utena, as far as just not wanting to own up to the fact that he's just doing crazy stuff. Very similar to Hideaki Anno of Evangelion, who just throws a bunch of crazy stuff out there and says, up to you. And then, people are like writing their thesis. Oshii is a little more accessible than that as far as the interviews that he gives, even regarding, like, you can read in English his interviews on Skycrawlers and what he was trying to say here. And no, Justin Savakis and I are not making it up when we are saying that movie is very largely a negative critique on otaku. It is.
Okay. I wondered about that.
Yeah, it's totally supposed to be, and because he said so. And so I don't think Oshii is completely indecipherable and weird. I think as a good starting point, as a good, like, easy access kind of movie, the first Patlabor movie. You don't have to know anything about Patlabor or anything. You can just watch that movie, and also, of course, the first Ghost in the Shell, because for all its problems that Brad mentioned, it was one of those things that just sort of breached the mainstream popularity. Heck, I mean, Conan O'Brien just had a thing where they were making fun of Ghost in the Shell the other day. So that was on network TV. People know about it. So you want to
hey, boobs.
One or two Oshii things to check out. Ghost in the Shell is easy to find, the first one. And Patlabor the Movie 1 might take a little looking, but you'll find it.
Does anyone know why he didn't have anything to do as far as directing Blood, The Last Vampire?
Blood the Last Vampire is a Production IG title, and he's works with Production IG pretty much exclusively at this point. But there are other people who work there. I don't know if Blood the Last Vampire was really his involvement. Maybe he was working on Avalon or something like that.
No, because they have. I'm just looking at his credits, and they have him as the original creator.
Oh, well, that's
The Last Vampire.
Entirely possible. I'm not really looking at. Yeah, you are in fact correct. I can see here that that was around the time that things. He was working on Jinro at the time. That's the reason why he didn't.
Okay.
Blood the Last Vampire. As I check, I can see the reason why Oshii's credited for creator of Blood the Last Vampire is because there's a group of writers called Team Oshii, which is basically the small group of writers and animators that Oshii sort of took under his wing, and they're kind of the ones who worked on Blood the Last Vampire.
Oh, okay.
And hey, he's got some Halo cartoons coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, he's supervising it. I don't think he's actually doing his own segment.
He's not directing his own segment, but he is creative director. He is the overlord of the production IG segments. And it's funny because I've been talking to those Halo guys, and I'm like, so you guys are sort of hoping this is commercially viable, right? And they're like, yeah.
Abandon all hope.
So why is Mamoru Oshii involved? It's going to be Master Chief quoting the Bible and lighting a cigarette for 10 minutes.
He'll shoot a bird, hopefully. Oh, no.
All right. In the interest of time, any final comments on Mamoru Oshii?
On Mamoru Oshii, he's a really fascinating director. He's at least trying to do something as opposed to, a lot of this anime stuff that's just sort of there to be there and have like these otaku in jokes or whatever. He may not be everyone's cup of tea, but I think he's a really versatile guy. He's always trying to buck the trend as far as what everyone else is doing and what he's into, for better or for worse. I do like him a lot. When his movies come out, I pay attention. I say, the new Oshii movie's coming out. I got to watch that. Even though, they're not really the kind of movie that you'd put on in front of your anime club and everyone would be, really pleased and satisfied with it. They're more introspective, more personal kind of movies.
He's off-putting, he's different, but for exactly those reasons, I think anyone who calls themselves an otaku or an anime fan absolutely has to see anything he does, even if you don't think you'll like it.
I would say the world is a better place for having Mamoru Oshii in it, even though you might not like everything he's done. It's never boring. I mean, well, okay, sometimes it is really boring.
Sometimes it is boring.
But it's never uninteresting. You're always kind of wondering, at least you have the what the hell thing going on. You're never
if it's a failure, it's an interesting failure.
Yeah, at least it's engaging you. It's always engaging, and he's a funny, unique, eccentric guy, and I'm glad he's making movies, even though, I'll rip some of them to pieces. I'm glad he's out there.
Oh no! The invasion has begun! Horrifying space creatures could be walking the streets of your town! The frogs are coming! Sergeant Frog is here to take over the world! But don't be frightened, my lovelies, because he's, well, kind of an idiot. With so much crazy, silly antics, why would you want to watch this show? Because you're crazy, man, you're crazy! That's right, Frog, suck! The Frog Doom doth happen! Oh, hello, Frog! Is it just me, or is there something smelly about this invasion?
Oh God, I'm still talking about it! I mean, I just fart all the time and it doesn't smell! Why can't I shut up?
Little Frog, big mission! Sergeant Frog, it's more than your simple mind can handle, coming soon to DVD.
Ghetto ghetto, know what that means? Well, I don't, but if you don't mind the random gibberish and the insanely normal behavior between Earthlings and a couple of Earth-destroying creatures, you'll love Sergeant Frog. Meet Hinata family, a family who discovered an alien sent to investigate Earth. But lo and behold, the alien named Sergeant Keroro gets discovered by junior high schoolers Natsumi and Fuyuki Hinata. Wait, I'm supposed to blend in. Nice job, Sergeant Keroro. Since his great hiding place, wallpaper, was compromised, Sergeant Keroro and all of his Charon comrades are forced to call a mission off, and he's stuck on Earth. He's stuck on Earth! It's a funny read. Anyone with an ounce of humor will love this series, but it's really over the top. Like brimming over. Like, BAM! I'm Adam West, and the world's conspiring to kill me. Still, if you like multiple personality admirers, Aikido master moms, and NC-17-ish banter under Hush Hush, you'll love Sergeant Frog. Graded 7.0 out of 10.
Hey, this is Sean Russell, and we're closing out the show. Few announcements to make before we put this baby to bed. The September 5th, the Parsec Award nominees, the finalists will be announced. Hopefully Anime 3000 is the winner. If not, congratulations to any of the finalists. All fine podcasts. And we actually have Daryl Surat on the show, who is another finalist, so good luck to everyone out there. The Tweeter Wall of Fame finally came to an end, and we were announced victorious. Now, a lot of people out there don't really care. We care, and I guess that's all that really matters in the end. Next week's show our next episode of the show will deal with Welcome to the NHK. We won't necessarily talk about the show, but we will talk about the show, if that makes any sense. And finally, we're giving away 2 tickets to see Glay in either San Francisco or Hollywood. That's going to be September 9th for San Francisco, September 11th and 12th for Hollywood. So give us a call at 954-903-0811 and let us know why you deserve those tickets, and then we will announce the winner on our website. We hope you enjoyed the show. Visit us at anime3000.com, and we'll see you next time.